Welcome back to Let's Make a Game, a channel about making computer role-playing games using the free program Twine and the Sugarcube format for Twine. In this video, I would like to keep talking about my current project of coding the combat system for a viewer's game. In particular, I would like to show how I've started to code the parts of the program that deal with the player character attacking an enemy. So as you can see, I've set up a combat here. We have a single enemy. We have the player character and a companion. And we have, it's the player character's go. They've won initiative. And we have buttons that we've seen before to advance or retreat. But we also have a couple of new buttons. One says shoot and one says pistol whip. So for the purposes of demonstrating and checking this code, I've decided that the companions and the player character will start with a pistol. I don't know if that's going to be how it's going to work in the finished game, but I need to make a choice about giving them some weapon so that we can test attacking and so on. So in this case, they have a pistol, and shoot and pistol whip are the two attacks that pistols have. So pistol whipping is only close range. It's only a 0 or 1 distance bands. And so there's no enemy there, as you can see. So if I choose to pistol whip, it'll just say there's no targets in range and I have to go back. But if I choose to shoot, that has a range of up to 5 distance bands. And so the enemy being within range, it should give me the option to shoot at them. And yes, it does. As you can see, again, it lists the number of the enemy, their type, their position, and their hit points. I don't know if the player is meant to know the enemy's hit points, but for now they do. But that would be easy enough to change if that's not intended to be the case. Again, I can change my mind and go, I want to do something else. But let's say that I end up choosing to do that. And then we would go to the screen where we actually roll to hit, which we haven't yet coded. So that's what the code does. Let's have a look at how it does it. So here we have the whole program. I'll zoom in a little bit. There we go. All of the new stuff takes place in player character, which is a passage that we already had, but I've added to it. We have a brand new passage called player chooses target, and we have another brand new passage called PC side attacks, where the to hit roll is going to be and the damage and dealing with long failures and long successes and so on. But actually there's only a comment there at the moment. There's no code. So most of the new stuff is here and here. There is a single new variable, and there are a couple of variables which I have talked about once, but we haven't sort of gone back to them again. There's a couple of arrays that are to do with the characteristics of weapons. So let's, which are probably worth sort of refreshing your mind over, or in relation to, sorry. So let's have a look at that. So the new array is called simply weapon, and it is what weapon a given person on the player character's side has. Weapon 0 is what weapon the player character has. Weapon 1 is what companion 1 is having. Weapon 2 is what companion 2 has. They all start with a value of 7 in this demonstration, which is the number for a pistol. Now, there's a couple of complexities here. Characters can have 2 weapons if one of them, if they're both one-handed. So, for example, you could have a pistol and a knife, sort of one in each hand. And we haven't dealt with that. We haven't put that in the code. Characters will need to be able to sort of put some weapons away and grab other weapons from their backpack or from wherever they're carrying stuff. And we haven't done any code that relates to that. We're just simply having this weapon array. So there's a lot of complexities that we haven't sort of got to yet that we need to get to make a fully functioning system. We also haven't dealt with ammo yet. But let's look at these two arrays that I've already shown you, but you may well have forgotten about. They are WEA underscore OVR and WEA underscore ATT. WEA underscore OVR stands for Weapon Overview, and WEA underscore ATT stands for Weapon Attack. Why do we have two arrays? Well, because weapons often have two different attacks. So with a pistol, you can shoot with it. You can also pistol whip somebody with it. And the effect of that is quite different. The range is different. You can only pistol whip somebody that's within close range. The ammunition, but you can shoot it at long range. The ammunition consumed is different. Pistol whipping someone doesn't consume any ammunition. Shooting someone obviously does. And the damage is different. So I don't remember which one does more damage. I think shooting someone does. Okay. Which I guess makes sense. So we need to sort of have details of the weapon as a whole, and then we need to have details of the individual attacks. And we also need some way to be able to tell which attack relates to which weapon. And I've done that in a way that is slightly unusual, and that is by putting text in the place where we'd normally expect a number to sort of name the array. So normally when we have an array, we have slot 1, slot 2, slot 3, and so on. But what I've done, and that's true of WEA underscore OVR, but what I've done with WEA underscore ATT is that instead of numbers, I have text. Now, when you have text in that particular place, you need to enclose them in single quotes. You can't use sort of normal quotes, the double quotes. You have to use single quotes. And I've decided that the names of the slots will be the name of the weapon, then a space, and then the number 1 for the first one, and if there's a second one, the number 2. And that means that, let's say we have pistol. Well, we can easily say, well, pistol, okay, we need to look at slots pistol space 1 and pistol space 2. And we know, therefore, these two are the ones that are relevant for having a pistol. So what is in these arrays? Well, let's look at WEA underscore OVR. We have slot 0, the name of the weapon. Slot 1, description of this weapon, as in slot 1 meaning slot something 1. Description of the weapon. This is a little light-hearted description that came in the document that I was given by the creator of this scenario. I don't know exactly where these descriptions are meant to be displayed, but I've typed them all up so that they can be displayed when we need them. Slot 2, how many attacks, how many different types of attacks does the weapon have? Slot 3, how many hands do we need to use this weapon? Something that isn't used yet. So the only one we're really using is this one. Slot 2, the number of ways to attack with it, and slot 0, the name. And then in WEA underscore ATT, we have slot something 0 is the name of the attack. So that's going to be throw, zap, pistol whip, etc. That mostly appears on the button, so that you know which button is offering you what. You know which button's saying that you want to shoot and which button's saying you want a pistol whip. Slot 1 is the maximum range, and we have to multiply this by 2 and add 1 because we've got, I can't remember whether it's called near or close, but we have near. Actually, I'll look it up so I'm not guessing. Okay, close, mid, and far range, but as I say, close is 0 or 1, mid is up to 3, and far is up to 5. So instead of, let's say we have 1, which is mid-range, we would multiply that by 2 and add 1, and that would give us 3. So 1 means up to 3 range bands. And 2, far range, means up to 5, and 0 means 0 up to 1. Then we have the damage, which we are not going to be talking about today. What sort of ammunition it uses. Some weapons don't use any ammunition. Some weapons do use ammunition, and we need to keep track of what ammunition the players have of different types. And some some weapons are used up by being used. So a grenade, you can only use it once, and then you don't have a grenade anymore. Some weapons use multiple units of ammunition. Usually they do more damage when they do that. So that's like spraying with a machine gun, something like that. And then we have the name of the ammunition that the attack uses. We're not really dealing with ammunition yet. We're mostly going to be looking at range and the name of the attack. So slot something 0 and something 1. All right. So we're in player character. We've already seen this code. This is just if the player's prone, they need to stand up, and that's their action. These buttons we've already seen. These are the buttons to advance or retreat. This is the new code. It is a for loop. It goes from 1 to WEA_OVR, square bracket, $weapon, square bracket 0, end square bracket, square bracket 2, end square bracket. So what is going on there? Well, first of all, we look at, oops, that's not what I want to do. We look at weapon 0, which is the weapon that the player character has. It'll have a value of 7, which I've set for the purposes of demonstrating this. And then it'll say, great, we need to look in WEA_OVR, which is weapon overview, 7, 2. Because slot something 2 in this, sorry, I put OVER, it's OVR. In slot something 2 in WEA_OVR gives us how many different types of attacks that weapon has. So we do this for every attack that the weapon offers. And here's what we do. We set Y equals WEA_OVR with the first slot being weapon 0 again. 0, well, that's the name of the weapon. Then we turn that to, we add a space, we set X equals Y plus the space character plus Z. Z is the variable that we're using for the for loop. So it will turn it into something like, for the first run through, it'll say pistol space 1, and then the second run through, it'll say pistol space 2. So this is how we sort of communicate between the WEA_OVR and WEA_ATT. We say, well, this is a pistol, and therefore we need to look in a slot which is named pistol 1 in the WEA_ATT array. So we'll have something like the text pistol 1 in X, and we set W equal to WEA_ATT X0. So that will be WEA_ATT pistol 1 0. And that will be the name of the attack. So that will be shoot or pistol whip in this particular case. Then we print a button. And the button has the text W. It has the text shoot or pistol whip. It goes to the page player chooses target, which is this next page here. When we go there, we set X equal to the name of the weapon plus the number. So we want to keep track of that. We want to keep track of whether the player has chosen pistol 1 or pistol 2 in this particular case. And then we just close off the button. So that will print the two buttons, shoot and pistol whip, both of which will go to player chooses target, but which will have different values for X. They will have pistol 1 or pistol 2. So we go to player chooses target. I've got a little note for myself that W is the name of the attack. So shoot or something. I don't know if we use that on here, so that might be a useless note, but this we do need, the weapon name plus the number that the player has chosen. So now we need to check if there are any enemies in range. So we set Z to 0, and there's a note there that says we're going to set Z to 1 if there's any enemy in range. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a long bit of text, which is in $Y, and $Y is going to be text which is a HTML table with the details of all of the enemies that are in range, including a button to choose to attack that enemy. And we're going to go through all the enemies, adding to that variable, and at the end, assuming that Z is equal to 1, we're going to print all that. And if Z isn't equal to 1, we'll just say there are no targets in range. And either way, we'll have this button where you can choose to return. You can choose to change your mind. Well, if there's no targets in range, you don't exactly change your mind. You have to go back and do something else. But if there are targets, you can choose to not shoot any of them or not attack any of them. And note that you don't go to play a character, you go to whose go is it. And the reason you go to whose go is it, and note also that we set that variable print underscore dist to 1. The reason we do that is because printing those, all of the enemies and their distances is done on this passage here. And then that goes to play a character. If we went back to play a character, we'd just have the buttons that gave us our choices, but we wouldn't have the display where we could see the enemies. All right, so let's look at the details of this. This looks extremely complicated, but that's just because the code for HTML tables is quite long-winded. It's actually a lot simpler than it looks. We start a table, remembering that we're not actually doing this yet. We can't do it yet. I've found that when you try and do tables like this, it wouldn't work properly. And anyway, we don't want to print this stuff if there aren't any enemies in range. That's why we've got it in a variable, and then we're going to print the variable if relevant, rather than doing it straight away, because we don't want to do this if there are no enemies in range. So that starts a table, that starts a row, and we're going to have a single row at the top, which is just the headings of all the columns. So in bold, we have the enemy number. We have a few little columns that are just separating the different things. We have their type, we have their position, and we have their hit points. And then we just close off the TD and the TR. We have a for loop that goes from 1 to enemy underscore num. Remember that enemy underscore num stands for enemy numbers, and it is the number of enemies at the start of the combat. So there might be this many enemies, but there might be fewer because some of them might be dead. Obviously at the start of a combat, that will be the number of enemies. So we go from 1 to enemy underscore num, and we say essentially, is this enemy alive and in range? And how do we know whether they're alive and in range? Well, we know if they're alive. We know whether they're alive by asking whether enemy Z2 is greater than 0, because that's where we store enemy hit points. And we know whether they're in range by this equation here. Math.abs bracket $enemy square bracket Z2 n square bracket 3 n square bracket end bracket is less than or equal to WEA underscore ATT square bracket x, n square bracket, times 2 plus 1. So what's going on there? Well, math.abs just means the absolute value of something. So the absolute value of a positive number is just that number. The absolute value of 3 is 3. The absolute value of 4 is 4. But the absolute value of a negative number is its equivalent positive. So the absolute value of -2 is 2, for example. Now, why do we want the absolute value of enemy Z23? Well, enemy something 3 is the position of that enemy, and position is stored in relation to the player character. And this is the player character choosing a target, or the player choosing a target for the player character to shoot at. So that means that the absolute value of the position of an enemy is how far away they are from the player character. If their position is 4, they're 4 range bands away from the player character. If their position is -2, they're 2 range bands away. So we need to find how far away they are, and that's what this is. And then we compare that to WEA_ATT X, which is pistol 1 or pistol 2, or whatever the weapon is that we're going to use. That's in that square brackets. 1, that gives us the range, which is 0, 1 or 2. Then we multiply that by 2 and add 1 to find the number of range bands. So, if they are alive and in range, that means they're a potential target. And that means that this variable that we're going to set to 1 if there's any enemy in range, we do indeed set to 1. And then we add to this variable y. We add a line of the array that is related to that enemy. So again, this looks really complicated, but all it's doing is adding information in the same order as it is in these column headings. Their number, their type, their position, and their hit points, and then we're separating that with some little 5-pixel columns to make it look a bit neater. Then a final button which has the text choose, sends you to PC side attacks, which is this next passage here, sets Z equal to Z2. So all these buttons are going to send you to the same place. We're just going to have a different value for Z, which will be who the target is. And then we close off the button and the TD, the cell of the HTML array, and the row. And then we do it for the next value of Z2. Then we just display that. We set the set print underscore dist equal to 1. That is a little flag that says we need to print where everyone is. And if Z equals 1, we add that /table to the HTML table and we print it all. And we have this if you have changed your mind. Or we say there are no targets in range with a couple of square breaks, and either way we have the option to return and choose to either make a different attack or advance or retreat. There is actually one other option that the player character is going to have, at least one other option, and that is that they can speak to one of their companions if they have any companions and try and affect what the companions do. But we haven't coded that yet, and we won't be doing that for a while. That'll probably be the last thing that we'll do. So that will give us what we saw, where we have that array with all of the enemies, and the player gets to choose which one. And so when we get to this PC side attacks, we will know the target, which is Z. We will know the weapon name plus the number, which is like pistol 2 or whatever. And we'll also know the name of the attack, although I'm suspecting that that won't be necessary in the code, but we'll see how it goes. But anyway, we're in position to do the random part of it, where we roll and we add the relevant factors, take away the relevant factors, and see whether we've got a success or a failure, as we've already done with the enemies. And that is probably what we'll be doing next. But for now, I hope that was useful or interesting to at least some of you, and I hope you'll tune in next time.